live and direct from the free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend and welcome to the Russ Belville Show. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, sticking with you here for the next 120 minutes, bringing you live progressive talk right here on the weekend. Come on and join us. The phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. What do you want to talk about today? There's plenty of stuff to cover. We've got the big three auto executives driving to Washington. Well, what do you know? They didn't take those big private planes. They drove to Washington to beg for your money. You think we ought to give it to them? We'll be taking your calls on that in our first segment of the show. Also, the myth of the $73 an hour union worker. Why is it that we suddenly get upset when workers are making money? We'll cover that in our People Speak segment. Also, we've got our Lunatic Fringe, where you can learn about fat, poor people getting free food and why we should nuke Pakistan. All of that coming up here in the Russ Belville Show. But before we get to that, we've got to welcome our favorite immigrant worker, the man across the continent who's taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL, the man who will still work for an American dollar, a man who believes Bush was blinkered on Iraq so Cheney could splash out on Halliburton and nick the exchequer, so he wishes the best of British to Obama's efforts to get the economy sorted. It's our own Stevie Lee.
Yay!
Welcome back, Stevie.
That was a good one. Thanks, sir. Thank you kindly, sir. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, I was noticing your pictures that you had sent out. Those of you who follow the show, you know that Stevie was involved with a charity raising money for prostate cancer.
That's
where
right.
He had to grow a mustache, and I guess the deal was at the end they got to pick, which mustache style you were going to stick with or show.
Did.
So tell them about it. Tell what one.
I gave people all sorts of options that they could choose from. The Tom Selleck.
Oh yes, a good one.
A very popular one there. The Fu Manchu didn't have quite enough length or girth.
The Fu Manchu's a tough one, yes.
It is. The Handlebar or Strongman was a very, very popular choice there. But, and this I think says a lot about my friends and how much they love me and like to see me in good situations, they chose the Hitler.
The Hitler stash.
The
oh,
Hitler.
Boy. And so I got this picture from Stevie. He sent me it by email, the picture of Stevie with the Hitler stash. And I also have to compliment you on the hairstyle. You got the hair.
I just stepped out of the shower. It was plastered to my forehead. What can I say?
It was beautiful. I mean, I've always thought about that. How evil you have to be that you ruin a mustache. Nobody can ever wear that mustache for the rest of history. That's
he
pretty
has
evil.
Ruined that particular style of tash for eternity.
How bad are you when you mess up a style?
It was remarkable. Even like when I didn't do the hair funny and I just had the tash, I instantly looked evil.
Yeah.
It was remarkable.
It's a little weird, and we hope that photo doesn't come back to haunt you someday.
one day,
yeah, maybe.
when we're all famous. Although, I did hear this week, you see, Brad Pitt has grown a moustache now.
Oh, he is?
Yes, indeed.
Well, he must have got it from you.
Yes, well, he was saying that the moustache is no longer fashionable. He's trying to bring it back into fashion. No, this is just another example of Brad Pitt trying to copy me.
That's
He's got
right.
nothing better to do with his time than to keep up with my blog, all right, and steal my thunder from a month of tash growing. They go, oh, hey, look what Stevie's doing. Oh, man, maybe, you know what, I can steal that from him.
Yeah. It's just like how Keith Olbermann keeps stealing all my stuff.
Exactly.
So, it's awful. Hey, speaking of the people in cable news, I've got some sad news to report here from those of us here at the Russ Belville Show who depend on this man for guidance and hilarity. Bill O'Reilly, Billo, Falafel Man, Loofah Boy, is ending his radio show next spring. Yeah, his radio show, which was launched in May of 2002, will end in the first quarter of next year. Now, according to Talkers Magazine, his show is carried on 430 stations and a weekly audience of 3.5 million, which puts him, of course, in the top 10 of all talkers. Hey, Stevie, it looks like there's a slot open for us.
Absolutely. There you go.
Hey,
I
all
will
right.
step up to that.
Thank you, Bill. So for the rest of this month, when we go through our Lunatic Fringe at the bottom of the hour, we will be presenting the best of Bill O'Reilly, excuse me, the best of Bill O'Reilly clips from the past year or so in our little tribute to the man. Now, also, speaking of Bill O'Reilly.
MFer, I want more iced tea.
Oh, yes, MFer, I want more. Yeah.
Kiss my ass, bust the cap on the Moet, because I don't want to hear that crap.
There, that's all the iced tea we got, so there you go. Also, speaking of Bill O'Reilly, you remember that Bill, of course, is the man who was behind uncovering our most treasured and secret of our wars in the liberal agenda. One of our biggest items on the secular progressive list of things to do.
This is our main thing that we have to destroy.
That's right.
Yes.
And since Bill O'Reilly is leaving his radio show, now we can fully move forward with our war on Christmas.
'Tis the season. As you know, if you've read my book, Culture Warrior, many secular progressives despise Christmas, want to wipe it out in America. The seculars don't care about Christmas. All they want to do is get Christianity out of the public square. It's ban all religion because that's offensive to the secular progressive movement.
That's right. We want to ban all religion because we secular progressives are offended by it. Yes. And so we give you our latest report in the war on Christmas. Now, we have a state senator in Utah by the name of Senator Chris Butters. And I can't help but think of South Park every time I mention him. But a state senator in Utah.
Gee whiz, fellas. You're not going to have war on Christmas, are we?
The state senator in Utah is drafting a resolution to encourage retailers to stop using nebulous phrases like happy holidays and season's greetings and get back to what shops used to say in December, Merry Christmas. Butters told the Salt Lake Tribune, quote, "I'm sick of the Christmas wars. We're a Christian nation and ought to use the word." Yeah, well, we've debunked the whole Christian nation thing many times before. The United States, in the Treaty of Tripoli, going back to the Second Congress here, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, which was signed onto by our president at the time and ratified unanimously by our Senate. And all treaties are the law of the land under our Constitution. So there it is in black and white. The United States is not a Christian nation, Senator Butters. And what are you going to do? How are you going to push a law to encourage people to say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays without it being a violation of church and state? These people, with their war on Christmas, what it's really all about is about Christian supremacy. What it's really all about is they can't stand the idea that other holidays and other religions might be equal to theirs, at least as far as how our government should treat them. And so here at the Russ Belville Show, we'll be keeping an eye on these Christian supremacists. Coming up later up on the show, we're going to be talking about some of these rules that George Bush has been pushing in the 11th hour that are a boon to these Christian supremacists. So stay tuned for that. But you know what? I know a lot of you are like me. You work a full-time job for a living, and you don't always have the time to catch up on all these news stories that are percolating throughout the cyberspace and the newspapers and the evening news. So at the top of the Russ Belville Show, I help you catch up on the week's hottest news topics with
The Week in 90 Seconds.
Barack Obama appoints Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State.
Mr. President-elect, thank you for this honor. If confirmed, I will give this assignment, your administration, and our country my all.
Barack Obama designa a Bill Clinton para Secretaria del Comercio.
Mi buen amigo, the next president of the United States, Barack Obama.
Al Franken claims a 4-vote lead in the latest Minnesota Senate recount.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
While Saxby Chambliss defeats Jim Martin for Senate in Georgia. I couldn't think of what else to play for a guy named Saxby. A year after it started, the White House finally admits we're in a recession.
Obviously, the NBER came out and said that we are in a recession.
What was that you told us back in January, Ms. Perino?
The administration economists are not forecasting a recession.
George W. Bush signs 11th hour rule changes that allow snowmobiles and firearms in Yellowstone.
Shut up! Shut up!
rules that deny benefits to combat injured veterans,
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
and rules that allow doctors to refuse to provide birth control options to women.
Jane, you ignorant, misguided slut.
Oh, and in other news, O.J. Simpson is sentenced to 9 to 33 years for, well, let's face it, for murdering his ex-wife, and then being stupid enough to kidnap a guy at gunpoint years later.
Nobody got this one. I want you to hang that fucking phone. Think you can steal my to sell it?
Yeah, good old O.J.
Don't squeeze the juice, man.
That's the juice, man. Off to prison for a minimum of 9 years for this example that we're playing right now, this raucous in the Vegas hotel room where he kidnapped a guy at gunpoint to try to get some of his sports memorabilia back. Yay, OJ, real smart. It's not like anybody was, looking for an excuse to lock you away for the rest of your life. Real bright, Juice. I'm Radical Russ. We will be right back in just a few minutes. We're coming back with the big story on the auto bailout. Do you think we ought to be bailing out the big three automakers? And what do you think about those CEOs driving all the way back from Detroit? We'll take your calls on it at 888-7-RADICAL, 888-772-3422.
Call now at 1-888-7-RADICAL. We'll even speak slowly for conservatives.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Hey, it's Butters. What do you know? 21 after the hour. Thanks for tuning in to the Russ Belville Show. We're glad to have you here. I want to remind you, if you're a business owner looking to support independent progressive talk radio, you can advertise on the Russ Belville Show and on the web at our blog at radicalruss.com. Hurry now while 2008 pricing is still in effect. Just send your email to radicalruss@gmail.com.
Now it's time for the big story.
My, what a big story.
Thanks. Now here's Radical Russ.
Thank you, Dan. We're going to be talking here about the big three auto bailout. The heads of the three automakers from Detroit, GM, Ford, and Daimler Chrysler, got smart this time. They didn't take the private jets. This time they drove hybrids, SUV hybrids from Detroit to Washington to beg for your money and my money. So we're going to be talking about that here and taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL. Now, this idea here, this testimony from these guys, once again, just kind of shows a little bit about how clueless they are and how the American people are perceiving this issue. For years and years and years, the big three automakers have been making cars that we don't want. They have been making the big gas-guzzling cars and trucks, I should say, the SUVs and such, that the American people are turning away from because, well, we're poor. We're hurting. We can't afford $80, $90, $100 to fill up a gas tank. We're also looking for cars that actually work and run. I mean, I was reading an editorial, an op-ed from Michael Moore, a guy who couldn't be more supportive of the auto industry and, coming from Michigan and all. And even he is saying he wants a car that works. He talks about a car that he had bought. I forget which one of the brands, Ford or whatever, but he talks about this car that he had bought that just some days just won't turn on, just won't start, electrical problems. And I've had my share of American cars too, where I've had problems like this as well. So these CEOs, they all show up. And let me give you just one of their quotes here. This is GM CEO Richard Wagner outlining his company's bailout plan. This is his plan. This is why they want the money and what they're going to do with it.
Our plan respectfully requests $12 billion in short-term loans and a $6 billion line of credit. We are seeking an immediate loan of $4 billion and potentially a second draw of up to $4 billion in January, reflecting the current very weak state of automotive production and demand. The intent is to begin repayment as soon as 2011
only 3
and
years.
fully repay by 2012 under our baseline industry forecast scenario. Warrants would allow taxpayers to benefit if GM's share price increases.
If?
We also propose a federal oversight board that would facilitate the restructuring negotiations and protect taxpayers.
Okay, so here's their plan. They want to borrow $12 billion and $6 billion in credit from us, an immediate loan of $4 billion, and then in January they want another $4 billion, and they'll start paying us back in 3 years, 2011, and maybe by 2012 be fully repaid if, of course, their share price goes up and people start buying their cars. Folks, do you realize that GM's stock, all of it, is only worth $3 billion? They want us to loan them $12 billion. They want us to loan them 4 times the worth of their stock to the same guys that messed up this situation in the first place. Hey, I know we did a really bad job making cars and selling them and all. Could you give us some more money so we could try again? Good Lord. You and I couldn't get away with this. If I was trying to sell you a car that was worth $3,000 and was asking you for $12,000 in loans, you would never take it. The collateral doesn't back up the loan. Why don't we just buy GM? Why don't we just buy General Motors? Why not? If we're going to be on the hook for their debts, why not just buy the company? Let's own them. Now, I know a lot of people will freak out about that. Oh, my God, socialism. We can't have socialism. Hey, we're too late, folks. We're already in the middle of socialism. We're giving taxpayer money hand over fist to everybody that's asking for it. It's about time maybe we started getting something in return for what we're purchasing. And I don't know about you, but I'm not so scared of the government running the car companies. Do you think they do a worse job? Really? Could they really do a worse job than GM, Ford, and Chrysler have done over these years?
Don't tempt fate, Double R.
Well, really? Look, here's the way I look at it. I can't fire a CEO. Now, this guy, Richard Wagner, for example, Richard Wagner took over as chief executive officer in June 2000, was elected chairman in 2003. During his reign, during the time this guy Wagner, the guy you were just listening to, while he was in charge, GM shares plummeted from $70 in 2006 to $2.79 last month, a loss of 96%. And for that loss of company value, 96%, for that loss of value, this year alone, Richard Wagner was compensated $1,558,000 in salary alone. And then if you add up all his stock options and benefits and all that, his total compensation works out to $14.4 million this year. Don't you wish you could get paid like that for doing a lousy job? $14.4 million to this CEO. Why, that's like 98, 99 full-time $73 an hour auto workers who don't really make $73 an hour, and we'll be talking about that in the next segment. Or how about this Alan Mulally of Ford? Alan Mulally, let's see what he has to say, his little begging of here. Let's see what he has to say.
There is a lot more work to do, but we are passionate about the future of Ford. In fact, we invite you to visit us in Dearborn, to kick the tires, look under the hood, and talk to our employees. We hope you will join us and see for yourself the progress we are making to develop the vehicles of the future.
Yeah, the vehicles of the future. I've seen your commercials for Ford, for all your F-Series pickup trucks where they have a big canyon and there's a big, huge box that's going to fall off the canyon, but the Ford truck has so much power, it can pull this box being held by a single cable up the face of a cliff. Nothing much about gas mileage in that commercial, but you can pull a box up the face of a cliff. Salary for Alan Mulally, this genius, $6 million a year with total compensation of $21 million a year. Now, compare that to a minimum wage worker. Gee, that's about 1,654 minimum wage workers. I'm Radical Russ. We're coming back with your calls at 888-7-RADICAL, and we'll be continuing to talk about this auto bailout, so stick around. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? No? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show. the voice of the everyday American. It's time for Radical Russ. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Hello, everyone, and 35 after the hour. I want to remind you to check out the Radical Writ, which is the online blog of the Russ Belville Show. You'll see the latest videos, follow my notes from show topics, as well as hyperlinks for all of the topics I bring up, so you can check the data for yourself. Also, you'll find links for the guests that we'll have on the show. And I want to remind you also, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but we do have a special guest joining us on the Russ Belville Show later today in our second hour. Salim Siddiqui from hotconflict.com will be here to talk about the Mumbai terror attacks and the possible involvement of Pakistan in that. And he's got much more expertise on the subject than I would. So we'll be welcoming Salim in our next hour. Also, you can continue all of our conversations online in the comments at the Radical Russ Show blog. It's the Radical Writ. Check it out at radicalruss.com. All right, let's turn things over to the good and wise people of North America and hear your voices. Stand up together and fight the power. We've got to let our leaders know how we feel. That's right. We're talking about the Big Three auto bailout. The CEOs there begging for our taxpayer money, and I want to know what you think about it. The phone number is 888-7-RADICAL. Let's go to the lines right now. We've got our good friend Dave from Chicago. Dave, welcome back to the show.
How you doing there, Russ?
I'm fabulous.
Yeah, I'm not on the Big Three. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, okay. It's about the Bill O'Reilly radio show.
Oh yeah.
Bill O'Reilly losing his radio show. I love it. A lot of people have trouble with the word irony. It's difficult to explain, you know.
Yeah.
And Bill O'Reilly would rail sometimes on a daily basis. Air America's going bankrupt. Air America, the lefty loons over at Air America. And for Bill O'Reilly's show to go bankrupt, and you know, you didn't say that, but I have it on high authority that Bill O'Reilly's radio show did, in fact, go bankrupt. For that to happen. Before anything else happens, that, my friend, is the definition of irony.
You know,
hey, Bill. Unlucky.
Unlucky.
Unfortunately, you get nothing to take home with you today, but thanks for playing anyway.
Actually, I think the true definition of irony would be if Bill O'Reilly's show went bankrupt and the bankruptcy court judge is the one that was going to be in charge of the Macris case for sexual harassment. If he got the same judge for the bankruptcy, that would be irony.
Maybe you should have seen the government about to get a loan out for that radio show later.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your call. Appreciate that. Let's go to, we're talking about the auto companies. Let's go right to Detroit. Detroit, Michigan. Rhonda is on the line. Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing great, Rhonda.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to be overly passionate because at the end of the day, you know, I see it as I'm fighting for my job. And so when you hear people who clearly aren't close to the heart of the automotive industry, you know, making opinions without really understanding what they're saying, what's going on behind what they're saying, it really kind of hurts. Because it's like at the end of the day, you know, your opinion is that we're not making cars that people want to buy. But at the end of the day, GM outsold Toyota last year in North America with auto sales. We say people don't want these big gas guzzlers. Well, our number one top seller was the Buick Enclave when we had a Chevy Malibu that got over 30 miles per gallon. So it's like people want cars that they can transport their families in. GM is making the cars that unfortunately people do want to buy. But we've got a situation now where people are losing their jobs, and the ones that do want to get a car can't get credit to get those cars.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree with you, Rhonda, there. And so tell me then, what do you think the solution is to this problem, to the problem of the automakers?
I think, unfortunately, until we start looking at how Japan or how, you know, this, like, for instance, this senator in Alabama who's so vocal, but if you go down to Alabama, you know, he's got Daimler, Chrysler, or he's got not Chrysler, but he's got Mercedes-Benz and Nissan and Toyota lying in his pockets. We need to be helping our American automakers. We look at Obama. Obama won because of the automakers, because of the union, the people who are out there that are middle-class people who are trying to pay their bills, trying to pay their mortgages, trying to put their kids in school. We're going to use our tax dollars to bail out these banks that put us in this predicament. But when it comes time to bail out and help the people who are really out there working hard, we want to turn a blind eye.
No, Rhonda, let me tell you, and I brought this up on the show last week as well, where I brought up how it is that we we were willing to give the money to the banks, no question asked, but when it came to the workers, there was all of a sudden this big problem with it. And when I'm getting down on Mullally and Wagner and these guys, the CEOs, I am not at all trying to blame the workers for doing a hard job and building their cars, but it starts from the top, and I'm just sick of these CEOs getting away with failing their companies to come beg the taxpayer for a bailout. I don't want to see the big three automakers fail. Like I said earlier, I would be for the government buying them if that's what it takes. It's not the workers' fault.
I don't think the government can help. But I think it's clear. I work for GM. I think we have too many brands. I think we realize that that's a problem, and that unfortunately we're going to have to eliminate some brands. I'm a proud Saturn owner, but at the end of the day, Saturn's volumes are down. So I understand that those are tough decisions that we have to make. But I do give these automakers credit because they easily could say, you know what, if you guys are going to help us out, then we're going to ship all of our operations overseas to China and India and Brazil, where we can, go there and work and find lower cost volume and just lay everybody off. But they're not doing that. They're trying to keep jobs here in the United States of America. They're pulling work from Europe and from Australia and from other areas to try and bring jobs back here to the United States of America.
Yeah,
and so we just kind of have to balance it a little bit.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of this too, a lot of this hand-wringing on the political side of it, both from Democrats and Republicans, but mostly from Republicans, has a lot to do with trying to break the back of the UAW. I really believe that this is part of what they're trying to do.
And people need to understand, you get Labor Day off and you get all this paid time off and you get this sick leave and you get to go spend time with your family when you have a baby or you get your pregnancy or your maternity leave. Hey, you need to thank your local UAW person or your local labor union person because you're enjoying a benefit. Maybe you're not in a union, maybe you're salary, but you're enjoying a benefit that they fought for.
That's right.
I'm on the management side, but I got my degree in labor relations, and so I understand the labor history. And people need to go back and check the labor history because if it wasn't for the unions, these companies weren't going to just be giving you these things.
That's right. Rhonda, thank you for your call. I appreciate that opinion there from Detroit, Michigan. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Let me bring up the elephant in the room that that a lot of people aren't talking about with regards to this. But Democrat Gwen Moore from the House of Representatives from Wisconsin did bring this up, and I'm finally glad to hear someone saying this.
Wouldn't this have been a great time for GM to say, we need a national health care program in order to stay viable?
This
it
Wagner
undoubtedly would help to level the playing field for the industry, and we've been very active in the healthcare debate since here in Washington.
That's right. That's Wagner from GM talking about that. It would help level the field. Our big three automakers, the healthcare costs add $1,525 to the price tag of every GM car. General Motors spent $4.6 billion on healthcare in 2007. That's more than General Motors paid for steel. Okay, so the healthcare is an enormous burden to our auto manufacturers, and in Europe and Japan, they don't have to fight against that. Let's go back to the phones. Our phones are open at 888-7-RADICAL. We're going to go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and speak with Phil. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey, Russ, how you doing this afternoon?
Good, sir. Good.
Good. I just wanted to say that 99 times out of 100, I totally agree with what you say, but there's a lot of nuts and bolts in the car business that I'm afraid you've missed. I spent 19 years in the sales and sales management side of it.
Okay.
And the first thing you learn when you're selling cars is people do not buy what they want, what they need, they buy what they want.
Yeah.
And up until gas went high, the trucks, the big vans and everything were the hot vehicle.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, what a car company, General Motors and all of them have to do, including Honda and Toyota and all of them, you can watch their commercials, they're pushing their big trucks. Mm-hmm. They have to order materials to build 2 years in advance, at least.
Sure.
So what happens is that, when something happens, a recession hits, gas goes sky high, they're caught holding the bag with all these big things that people don't want or need anymore, and they can't just make an instant change. Now, as far as the solution, I agree with you pretty much on let's just buy the company. However, what's going to happen then is we can build the fuel-efficient cars that America needs, but if gas stays low, we won't have what they want. Now, if you were to incorporate that with a gasoline tax program that kept the gas tax rather high in the bad times, then that could used to supplement the bad times if you kept it high in the good times, stabilizing the price of gas, then get the right cars out there, and then you could lower gas, take the temporary gas tax off.
Here's what I got to ask, though. I got to ask this, Phil. I mean, you're right. I don't know the full ins and outs of the car industry, but don't these same situations apply to the foreign car makers too, as far as ordering their materials 2 years in advance and people buying cars they want but not need? Why has this not affected the foreign automakers, but it's affected the American ones so much?
It's affected the foreign automakers greatly. That's the reason when you see the Toyota commercials, the Honda commercials, they're not pushing their small fuel-efficient cars. They're still trying to sell those big trucks they've got way too many of that don't get any better fuel economy than the American counterparts. Well,
it's a complex subject, but I'm glad to get some expert opinions from people that are actually working in the field out there. Thanks for your call, Phil. I appreciate it. We got to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to be bringing you the Lunatic Fringe. We monitor the right-wing radio waves so you don't have to. Stick around. This is the Russ Belville Show.
We're still waiting for Bill O'Reilly's response to our loofah joust and falafel off. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Hey, 50 after the hour, and, Bill O'Reilly's leaving his radio show next month, so not a whole lot of time left to get the loofah joust and falafel off taken care of. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Now it's time for our weekly roundup of the right wing's altered reality.
The lunatic is on the grass.
From the Guano Loco neocon chicken hawks to the hypocritical American Taliban and the cable news punditocracy, the Russ Belville Show presents the Lunatic Fringe Award, an award dedicated to the politician, pundit, or preacher who said the most ignorant, bizarre, or hateful quote of the week. We got a full stable of lunatic fringery, but since Bill O'Reilly is leaving, yes, we're going to miss Bill, me and Stevie here.
We really are.
And so since we're going to be missing him so much, we've decided for the next 4 lunatic fringes, for the rest of the month, we're going to be playing a best of Bill O'Reilly lunatic fringe clip.
Live from Portland.
Yes, in dedication to the man himself, to Papa Bear. This is Bill O'Reilly from last Christmas season. This was last Christmas season, talking about how our poor people have so much great stuff.
Yet according to the government census, poor households in America have lots of stuff. 97% have a color TV, 78% a DVD player, 80% an air conditioner, 73% a car or truck, 63% cable or satellite TV, and 43% of poor households in the USA own the home they are living in. So if the poor are not destitute in America, and they obviously are not, why are so many veterans sleeping under bridges, John Edwards?
Yeah, that was back with the old veterans thing back there a year ago. But I love that thing that comes around. It comes around every year when we talk about the poor, how the people on the right wing got to talk, well, our poor aren't really poor. They've got homes and cars and clothes and food. It's not like they're really poor. And to continue on that theme, we're going to move now to Bill Cunningham. This is a recent clip, not a Bill O'Reilly best of, but this is a recent clip echoing the same sentiment.
We're about the only country in the whole world with fat poor people, and we're told every time at Thanksgiving and Christmas how the pantry shelves are empty because we're handing out free food. I mean, I'm surprised anybody spends money at Kroger in the poor community, so to speak. When they have cell phones, they have pagers, they have telephones, they have cars, they have HD TV, and they have those things because they spend no money on food because it's all given to them for nothing. Why would a grocery store open in the poor community when everyone gets fed free and they eat too much.
Yeah, this idea that the poor have so much stuff and they're doing so well. First of all, when Bill O'Reilly said his thing about, 98% of the poor have color TVs, like, what, they're supposed to have black and white? Does anyone even have black and white TVs anymore?
Don't touch that dial.
And how long has that TV been there? I mean, it's not like they're going out and buying a new TV every month. And, the poor have cell phones. How do you expect them to call in and try to get jobs or try to get work or call an ambulance if they're sick or hurt or call to find out where their kids are? What, poor people shouldn't be able to communicate? What is wrong with these people? And furthermore, this idea about fat poor people. I hear this all the time. Well, we are the only country that has fat poor people. Yeah, that's because we make the most fattening, disgusting food the cheapest possible food there is. A study published in the January 2004 edition of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that there is an inverse relationship between energy density and energy cost. That means that if you want to have, thin, nice, healthy poor people, you'd have to buy them like lean meats and fish and chicken and fresh vegetables and fruits. Those things are expensive, but mac and cheese and frozen pizzas and things like that.
Hoof and eyelid meat-like grills.
Exactly. Very, very cheap. So you can't complain about the fat poor people when you make the healthy food so expensive, the poor people can't afford it. All right, now let's get back to one of our friends here. This is the morning show, Quinn and Rose, Jim Quinn and Rose. They were talking about the woman who had made the Christmas ornament, the Impeach Bush Christmas ornament. Now, this Impeach Bush Christmas ornament originally got approved to put on the White House Christmas tree, but just this week the White House figured out what it was, and they pulled this ornament. This is Rose and Jim talking about the woman, the artist who had made the ornament.
An artist doesn't always get this kind of attention. This is the artist speaking.
Yeah, because you're hardly ever that stupid.
Plus, you're weird. Now I'm starting to think that there's something really wrong with you. That's the attention you're getting right now, sweetie. She said it took on a life of its own, obviously. In a way, I'm speechless. Good, stay that way. Don't talk.
That's right, don't talk. Shut up, bitch.
Ah, yes, shut up, bitch. That's Jim Quinn. With spreading the Christmas spirit, I suppose. And just for a double shot here of Jim Quinn, this is Jim Quinn also. We were talking about they were talking about the attacks in India, the terrorist attacks in Mumbai, and how it's theorized it came from Pakistani radicals. And Jim Quinn has the same solution to the Middle East as my redneck uncles and cousins have back in Idaho, which is that we should just nuke it and turn it into glass, turn it into a parking lot. This is Jim Quinn.
We either wipe this scourge from the face of the earth.
Well, you just can't say that because there's a lot of peaceful Muslims out there.
Well, there was a lot of Germans that weren't Nazis either, but we still bombed Dresden. We either wipe this scourge from the face of the earth or we will be doomed to live under it. We have the technology. Do we have the spine?
And to also echo that sentiment, our favorite wiener from San Francisco, Michael Savage.
Should the U.S. military be deployed? Should the tribal areas of Pakistan be wiped out and the rats killed in there once and for all? Should we nuke the tribal areas in Pakistan's Wild Man region and wipe out the terrorists once and for all? What the heck do we have nuclear weapons for? What are tactical nuclear weapons for but to wipe out an enemy? The enemy lives there. Kill them and their families and show them that the terror they inflict on the West will come home to roost and will be inflicted on them. There's no question that entire region needs to be annihilated and stripped off the earth.
So Michael Savage and Jim Quinn for demonstrating all the subtle foreign policy experience of my redneck cousins. You're the winners of this week's. I love this idea.
That's our first tag team win.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people out in the world that hate us. I know what we should do. Let's nuke their entire countries. Then they'll love us. Well, the people that are left anyway.
Yeah.
I swear, this is exactly the kind of foreign policy discussions that I get when I go back to my family reunions back in Idaho. We ought to that's the only thing they'll understand is if we give them power. They don't understand nothing else. You can't talk to those people. You got to nuke them. They ought to just nuke the place and turn it into a parking lot. That's the level of sophistication on the right wing.
I'm not parking there.
I'm Radical Russ. We'll be back after the top of the hour here with more of the Russ Belville Show. Stick around.
Live and direct from the free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to the weekend. I'm Radical Russ Belville. Glad to have you here for the second hour of the Russ Belville Show. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to be speaking with Middle East expert Salim Siddiqui on the Mumbai, India terror attack. So stay tuned for that. He's a great expert on the subject. We've also got our Free-for-All segment coming up. We're going to be talking about George Bush pushing out the harmful 11th hour regulations, trying to, wreck the place on his way out. It reminds me of a rock band when they trash a hotel. That's what he's doing to our country right now, and we'll let you know all about that. But right now, I want to talk about how we are getting by here in this country. You know, I'm the voice of the everyday working American out here, and in our first segment of the show, I got auto bailout, and I got to speaking to an auto worker from Detroit, Michigan, and I got the feeling that maybe I didn't make my point the way I should have made it. So we're going to go over this again. I think it's important for us all to remember here that I'm not talking about the workers when I'm talking about the failure of the auto companies. The American auto workers and the unionized workers of this country are part of what makes this country strong. I am a huge supporter of them. What I'm curious about here is whether or not we're going to be throwing American taxpayer money at this problem and trying to just do the same thing over and over again. I mean, Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So when I see Wagner, Mullally, and Nadelli, these three CEOs from the big three, coming to Washington begging for our money, I'm thinking, why aren't you guys resigning? You're the ones that got your company into this mess. If you run your company so badly, you've got to come to the American taxpayers to beg for money. You're the one who should be losing his job, not the workers, not the auto workers out there. So that's going to be our subject here today, and we're taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL here for our Living in America. Neocon regressives like to say that we liberals hate America first. I like to say we liberals love America most. That's why we're so disappointed in how badly regressives trash her reputation and treat her people. So today we help our readers focus on the plight of the little guy by taking our look at That's right. We are living in America here, and we're talking about the auto bailout and the state of the American auto companies. And I mentioned this when I was talking to Rhonda from Detroit, is that I really feel that this effort lately is a big effort to try to break the back of the United Auto Workers Union. You know, ever since the era of Ronald Reagan and firing the air traffic controllers, there's been a coordinated assault on labor in this country. And one of the things that really bugs me about this is this latest talking point that's trickling down from the right wing, and it's making it onto the airwaves. There's a number of people been saying this. It's even gone as far as Wolf Blitzer.
The union, by the way, is itself feeling the pinch of a contracting industry. The United Auto Workers membership hit an all-time high of 1.5 million back in the 1970s. Today, it's under 600,000. A union worker makes $73 an hour on average when you factor in all the benefits, compared to $48 an hour for non-union auto workers here in the United States.
Now that's Wolf Blitzer on CNN. This is Chris Burry on ABC News.
But the union did not offer to give back the big stuff, pay and benefits that remain a fundamental problem. Ford, Chrysler, and GM pay union workers more than $73 an hour in wages and benefits.
And then there's Trace Gallagher on Fox News.
Congressman, you talk about justifying this bridge loan. Is it tough to justify to your constituents when you have the hourly compensation and wage of the big three at around $73?
So this is the big thing, the $73 auto worker. You know, they make $73 an hour. Some reason that's a big issue. that people get paid, decent wages, when we're talking about the CEO Wagner making $14.4 million in compensation and Alan Mulally of Ford making $21.6 million in compensation, and yet the salaries of the unionized auto workers, that's the big problem that's going on here. Well, folks, the $73 an hour auto worker does not exist. I brought this up last week, but I'll just bring it up again. When they are citing this $73 an hour figure, they are citing the cost of not only the salary and the health care benefits and the pension benefits of the workers who are working today, they are also counting the pension and the benefits for the workers who have already retired or no longer work with the company. So that's a way of saying, let's take all the money we pay out to everybody, but only divide it by the number of people who are working right now. Right? So, yeah, that of course it's going to look like $73 an hour. It's nowhere close to that. The average line worker in America is making about $28 an hour, and it gets up to about $41 an hour when you start figuring in the benefits. But it goes back to that whole thing about health care. If you really are concerned about this so-called $73 an hour union worker, take the health care expense off of GM's back and have national, socialized, single-payer health care. Germany doesn't have to pay $1,500 a car to build a BMW. Japan doesn't have to pay $1,500 a car to build a Toyota to pay for the health care of their workers. Why should our companies have to foot the bill for the workers' health care? That's what's bringing those charges up. Now, even to the point of these auto workers, these unionized auto workers making money, making a decent salary, this idea of trying to vilify them for making the kind of salary and benefits that all Americans should be enjoying just bugs the hell out of me. There's a commercial. Ford has this, I think it's Ford, has this commercial line. Maybe you've seen it, where they talk about employee pricing. New Ford employee pricing. You pay what the employees pay. Isn't that just a way of saying we don't give our employees a price break? Think about that, right? If I pay what the employees pay, what you're saying to me is employees have to pay full price. That's what you're saying to me. That's the kind of mindset that's behind this $73 an hour unionized auto workers. If we should all feel awful that they're making so much money, even though it's not $73 an hour, it's closer to $41. Why should we be upset at the unions that have managed to stand up for their workers, to pay them a decent living wage in this country, to give them health care, to take care of their families, and to give them a pension so that they don't have to eat cat food when they're retired? Why are we begrudging them that instead of screaming bloody murder that the rest of the workers in America don't have unionized protection and don't have health care benefits, and their pensions are being raided by corporate raiders like Enron and these guys? That's what we need to start thinking about. Don't begrudge the hardworking auto worker. Don't begrudge the auto industry that generates 1 out of every 10 jobs in this country. Begrudge some of those CEOs that are making the $14 to $26 million. Oh, and the other thing they're bringing up that you really got to just shake your head at. Part of their speeches when they're up on Capitol Hill, these big three CEOs were saying, well, since our company's not doing so good, we will forego our salaries. We will work for just $1 a year. I know it's a big sacrifice, but we'll work for $1 a year just to save our companies. Well, first of all, Nardelli from Daimler Chrysler, is already making $1 a year. That's already his salary, $1 a year. And he also makes undisclosed compensation. Right? So Daimler got pretty smart there. They don't disclose how much they're paying him in stock benefits and options and all these other things that they get. You talk about Wagner. Well, if his salary, if he forgoes his salary and goes down to $1 a year, well, why, his total compensation will drop to a mere $13 million. Aw, poor Richard Wagner. How about Alan Mulally? If he went and just took $1 salary this year, why, his compensation would only go down to $15.5 million. Gee, how are they ever going to make it on that $1 a year salary? I wonder. Oh, man, this has really got me burned up. You can tell about this. And the other thing that burns me up about this is how, we talk about this economy overall being in a recession, and people, part of the reason for this is because we have decimated our middle class. is because Reagan fired the air traffic controllers. It's because union membership has dropped from somewhere like 35% down to like 7%. This is why we're in a recession. Nobody can afford to buy the stuff anymore. We've built our whole economy up as a consumer economy, and then we shipped the consumers' jobs to Mexico. We shipped the consumers' jobs overseas. The consumers don't have the money to consume anymore. We built up a middle class that grew accustomed to a certain standard of living. You know, little things like being able to own a home, or being able to send your kids to college, or being able to pay for your health care. You know, little, frills like that. We assembled our entire economy around this idea of a strong middle class, and it made America the greatest country on earth in the span of a generation. And in the span of the next generation, we've done everything we can to tear that down. If you want to get over this recession, this depression as it might be, you got to start thinking a little less about the CEOs at the top and a little more about us workers at the bottom. Start practicing some trickle-up economics. Give us the money, we'll spend it. I'm Radical Russ. When we come back from the break, we're going to be speaking with Salim Siddiqui from HotConflict.com, an expert on Middle Eastern affairs, about the Mumbai terror attacks, and taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL.
Agent RR7, running surveillance on right-wing radio so you don't have to. It's messy. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome back, everyone. It's 21 after the hour. This is your Marijuana Minute, 60-second update of cannabis news in America, brought to you by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws at NORML.org. The Associated Oregon Industries are planning a legislative assault on Oregon's 10-year-old medical marijuana law, claiming that medical marijuana patients in the workplace are a safety risk. However, data compiled from Oregon State's government workman compensation safety records shows a 10-year decline in workplace safety statistics. During the 10 years that the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act has been in place, the program has grown from 500 patients to over 20,000 now. Yet, workplace fatalities, time-off injuries, non-time-off injuries, DUIs, and citations for serious OSHA workplace safety violations have all declined in the same 10 years. All right, that's our Marijuana Minute, because nobody else will talk about the drug war, so we're going to. But now, joining us on a completely different topic by telephone is Salim Siddiqui, the man behind HotConflict.com and an expert on Middle Eastern affairs. Salim, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Russ.
Well, of course, we got to talk about these terror attacks that happened in Mumbai, and I just wanted to get your theories on this. They're talking about an organization involved with this that's claiming responsibility, and perhaps whether or not they're involved with the Osama bin Laden run Al-Qaeda, or if they're just a startup group of their own. What do you know about the perpetrators of this attack?
Well, initially we all heard the name Deccan Mujahideen, which was a name nobody had heard before, and it implied that there was some local India connection. And then afterwards, a lot of the intelligence community is saying there's more likely a connection to a group called LET, or Lashkar-e-Taiba, based out of Pakistan, a so-called fundamentalist right-wing religious group that has been engaged in acts of uprising in Pakistan locally and even in India, and involved in the war in Kashmir. Obviously, if you look back at history, Pakistan was created after the end of colonialism in India. Mm-hmm. And when the Indians were originally getting their country back, Muslims decided, well, now's the time for us to try and get our own country too, instead of being a small minority. And that's when Pakistan was created. And Pakistan and India have technically been at war since the very beginning. separation occurred in the 40s, but it was never a clean. It wasn't a clean divorce, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And they've been arguing over stuff forever, and so there's constantly been tension there.
It's like
sometimes we forget that here in the West when we sent money to Pakistan and we did different things, and we expected Pakistan or Musharraf at that time to do what we wanted. When they ended up spending all of the money on their military and their nuclear infrastructure, because the most important thing for them locally is their own local war.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to me that India and Pakistan got a divorce, and they're still battling over the custody of their kid Kashmir, among other things. Now, is this obviously this was a huge terror attack, but as far as international news, we don't always focus on India very much or Pakistan very much. Have terror attacks been a part of Indian life and Pakistani life for a while now, or is this something new to the Indian consciousness?
No, it's not actually very new, and this goes back to our perception here in the West in the media. We kind of woke up to things in the West after 9/11. And the West kind of branded all Muslim countries as the war on terror and every subvergent group as Al-Qaeda initially. Mm-hmm. And everybody was called Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda became so popular that even terrorists started calling themselves Al-Qaeda, right? We started saying Al-Qaeda Iraq, Al-Qaeda Mesopotamia. Everybody was saying, hey, we'll call ourselves Al-Qaeda, and it's now a huge brand name.
Wow.
Well, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've started to see more and more analysts tell people that, no, Al-Qaeda is not really a large, organized, underground structure. There isn't that kind of organization. And now we're seeing that, different groups are claiming different things. Now, Lashkar-e-Taiba, this group in Pakistan, I actually met with them in the 90s. When I went to Pakistan, I went to some LET offices, and I even went to their training camp in the tribal areas. And the thing that surprised me even at that time in the 90s was they weren't concerned with the global war on terror. They weren't concerned with the West. We look at the war in Afghanistan right now and we think, okay, all the military's talking about moving troops from Iraq and going to the main front of the war, which is Afghanistan. But the Afghans themselves have never been involved in anything. The Afghans never attacked us, and the Afghans really don't have any concern outside of their country. And unfortunately, it's always been well-funded Arabs who used Afghanistan as a hiding place or a base since the Russian war, when America and the Muslims were on the same side.
It's amazing how much changes out there, but yet how much stays the same. We're speaking with Salim Siddiqui, who's the man behind the website hotconflict.com. Check that out on the internet. And Salim, we've got a caller who's calling in with a question for you. Can we take a call for you?
Sure.
Okay, let's go to Alex in Dallas, Texas. Alex, you have a question for Salim?
Well, I actually have a question for both of you guys.
Okay.
First of all, I was curious about I understand that one of the attackers was captured during the operation. Is that correct?
That's what they told us. There was one guy that they actually got.
Yes. Well, my question is this. I know that the issue of torture and waterboarding and those things are very, very hot-button issue here in the United States. And my question is this. When the Indians captured him, I don't know what kind of questions they may have asked this young man, but if he had information about another strike team about to hit another 10-man team or a 5-man team about to do another attack in India, in New Delhi or somewhere else, and he had that information and it was time sensitive, I understand the interrogation methods. They're much like police officers when they're trying to get a confession or whatever. It takes time and there's a certain process. However, my question is would this have been a legitimate time for maybe a presidential authorization to use harsh interrogation methods on this young man?
Are you talking things like waterboarding, Alex?
Well, that is one of them.
Okay, I'll give you my short answer. No. Now, Salim, how would you like to answer that?
I could say no too, and that would be easy. But the truth is, the reality is, whoever that guy was, he wasn't getting good treatment. I'm sure they were doing whatever they wanted to do to him.
My question is,
well, hold on, Alex.
How would you get the information?
Alex, we're running low on time. Let me let Salim answer this call and thank you for your question.
The point though, Alex, is what kind of information would he have? I mean, he's not denying, and they're not denying that they're doing this because they want better rights in Kashmir and they want to fix the situation in Pakistan.
Yep, and I'm sorry to have to cut you off, Salim. We are up against the clock here, running out of time. And Salim, thank you for joining us here on the show again. The website is hotconflict.com. Alex, thanks for your question. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but we're up against the clock. Salim, thanks for joining us again.
Anytime, Russ. Thanks.
Hotconflict.com. Check it out. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Elitist. Just like any other dishwashing, burger-flipping, public school-educated, self-employed, bar band, musician, National Guardsman, he's Radical Russ.
Welcome back to the show, 35 after the hour, and I want to thank Salim Siddiqui from hotconflict.com for joining us here on the show, and we'll have him back again when we have some more time to speak. We'll get those interviews in the top of the show next time and take all your calls and really expand it a little bit. But right now, we need to get on to our next segment for the day. Every week at the Russ Belville Show, we sift through the headlines to find the stories buried in the back pages or ignored on the evening news. Stories our citizens and our leaders need to hear. In this segment, we go under the radar. Now, today I want to talk about, in Under the Radar, the outgoing Bush administration. 44 days, I think, left in their term, and they're acting like a bunch of rock stars, trashing the joint before they leave for the next city. Yeah, there's all sorts of regulations and official executive orders and rules in the executive branch that Bush has just been having a field day with, these 11th hour rule changes. And the one that caught my eye was that the Department of Interior overturned a Reagan-era regulation that permits loaded firearms at national parks. That's right. George W. Bush has made it now so that you can carry a loaded firearm in, I don't know, Yosemite National Park?
I'm the hootin'est, tootin'est, shootin'est, bobtail wildcat in the West. I'm the fastest gun north, south, east, and west of the Pecos. I'm the... shut up!
That's right. Yosemite National Park, we go to Crater Lake, we could go to Yellowstone. All the national parks now, you are allowed to pack heat. That's right, 388 out of the 391 national parks. And not just in states that allow guns in their state parks. That was the original idea. But now in any state that allows concealed carry laws. Right? So say like Florida doesn't allow guns in their state parks. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say if Florida didn't allow guns in their state parks, since Florida has a concealed carry license law, you could take your gun into the national park. But this is not the only rule that they've been overturning or changing or manipulating. Let me give you a few of these, because this is really, truly an under-the-radar story. People aren't hearing about this. They've changed a rule that narrows the definition of a combat-related disability, costing some injured veterans thousands of dollars in lost benefits. Basically, they're making just little technicalities like if you got blown up in Iraq, well, if what hit you in Iraq wasn't the actual shrapnel from the shell, like the shell goes off, it blows something up, and it blows up a piece of, I don't know, cement from a wall, and the piece of cement from the wall hits you, then that's not a combat-related injury because it was the cement from the wall, not the shell itself, not the shrapnel from the shell, right? So, yeah, that's your Support the Troops party. They've changed a law that allows truck drivers to drive as many as 11 consecutive hours a day and to drive up to 14 hours a day. So next time you're passing that big rig on the freeway there, just remember he might be up for the 11th hour driving that big rig. That's nice to know. Some other things here that have been changed. They've made it harder to regulate toxic substances on the job. It's harder for the government to regulate the chemicals and toxic substances to which workers are exposed to on the job. They've changed a rule for the Bureau of Land Management. that allows land mining claims, mining claims near the Grand Canyon. How about that? Let's have some strip mines near the Grand Canyon. Won't that be swell? Oh, speaking of big company giveaways here, they've changed a rule to let factory farms voluntarily decide if they need permits to discharge waste into waterways. Yeah, it's up to, you got a big hog farm in North Carolina, it's giving off, tons and tons and tons of pig sewage into our waterways. It's up to you if you want to decide if you want a permit or not. That's all. It's up to you. I'm sure you'll do the right thing. They overturned the ban on snowmobiles in Yellowstone National Park. Yay, yay. Now we can have rain running through National Park and smog near Old Faithful. Won't that be swell? They've changed a rule to allow coal companies to dump dirt and rocks into the streams. What the heck? Dirt and rocks in the streams, no big deal. But the rule change here that has got to be the one that is most offensive to me, and I've been keeping my eye on this subject for a long time now. They have signed a rule now, George W. Bush here, 11th hour rule, that allows healthcare workers to refuse procedures for moral or religious reasons. This rule would allow doctors, nurses, and pharmacists to refuse to participate in any procedure they find morally objectionable, including abortion and possibly even artificial insemination and birth control. The rule also makes it clear that healthcare workers may also refuse to provide information or advice to patients who might want an abortion. Now, it should be clear that the rule has been for a long time now that doctors do not have to perform abortions. So no one is talking about here forcing doctors to perform abortions if they're morally opposed to it. What this is this so-called conscience clause thing where doctors, nurses, and pharmacists don't have to perform any procedure that violates their morals. So, for example, if you've got a patient, a lesbian patient who wants to be artificially inseminated, and you think the gay people are icky, then it violates your morals, and you don't have to participate in the artificial insemination. Suppose you're a woman who has just recently been raped, and you go to the hospital, and you're trying to get some emergency contraception so that you don't get pregnant with your rapist baby. Well, if the healthcare workers there feel that it's morally objectionable, then they don't have to give you those birth control. They don't have to give you Plan B. They don't have to give you emergency contraception if they find it morally objectionable. This is the Christian supremacy movement at its highest level.
Freedom requires religion.
No, it does not. In fact, the less religion we have, probably the more freedom we would have in this country, if you ask me. Go ahead, Steve.
This is some crazy stuff, man. It really is. A couple of things here that I noticed, particularly with the mad religious right here. I heard a story earlier this week about Planned Parenthood, the organization, and it was their branch in Indiana. Now, they have started to give out gift certificates. You can buy, however much money gift certificate, which you can then take to Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
Well, naturally, not URR, but the other RR, religious right, got their knickers in a twist, as we like to say, over what they called, I think it was like murder certificates or death certificates or something. Now, only very, very, very small, a percent of what they do at Planned Parenthood is actually abortions. The rest of it is basic health care, things like pap smears, mammograms, postnatal treatment, things like that.
We'd have to leave it to the religious right to get upset about trying to give people more health care.
Precisely. I mean, I'm not in, I don't really feel like having a pap smear for Christmas myself. But the fact that you're taking health away, or the option for health away from people, and this kind of stuff these gift certificates are going to go to people who cannot afford health care of their own.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. It's not an abortion certificate. It's not a get out of baby free card. You know?
Yeah, they really need to get over this notion that women shouldn't be in control of their own bodies and shouldn't be allowed to make their own health care decisions.
If you want to stay in the pulpit, stay out of my bedroom.
There we go. And this rule that just got signed by the Bush administration, we should point out that it applies to these places that receive federal funding, right? So this wouldn't be all of them, but it does, according to the Health and Human Services Department, this rule would apply to any entity that receives federal funds, and that could be what they call about 584,000 entities, which would be about 4,800 hospitals, 234,000 doctors' offices, and 58,000 pharmacies that receive federal funds. So over 500,000 locations that could opt to, if their professionals decided to, pharmacists, nurses, and doctors, if they decided to, they could refuse to give women basic health care if it offends their morals. You know, let's get back to a separation of church and state in this country. Look, I get accused of being anti-religion a lot. I am not anti-religion. I love the freedom of religion in this country. I will to the death your right to worship, think, and feel any way you want to feel. But where that starts affecting my rights and affecting the rights of the women I love, that's where we've got a problem. I'm Radical Russ. We got one more segment in the show. It's time for our email segment. Your emails at radicalruss@gmail.com. We're going to get to them. And in our next segment, the top baby names of 2008, just for something light to end the day with. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Here at the Russ Belville Show, we know that many of you have something to say, but you're shy about calling a radio show. So we remind you, you can always contact me and Stevie by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Now, before we get to our email segment, though, I just had one real quick free-for-all thing to get to. That's right, our free-for-all segment. 5 hours worth of show, 2 hours worth of time to fit it all in. It's the lightning round.
Free-for-all and hard as said, you can bet your life. Stakes are high and so am I. In the air tonight.
All right, on our free-for-all today, I just wanted to bring up something that wasn't recession. It wasn't depressing. Something fun to talk about, and this is the top baby names of 2008 just got released. The top baby names. Stevie wasn't on the list. And,
darn.
And neither was
again.
Russ. Yeah, we got shut out again. and as I thought about this too, I got to thinking about, you know, I watch a lot of football, or as Stevie knows it, motorcycle courier ball.
Exactly.
And it's something about the names of the players these days. And this isn't the Who's on First skit. Don't worry about that. But there are some crazy names of players out there. You know, on the Oregon Ducks out here in Oregon, they got a player whose name is Jacquiz. Jacquizzz. Jacquiz is his name. I first heard it. I thought it was a dirty word or something.
Yes.
Jacquiz sounds dirty. And then
I'm going to take a quick Jacquiz.
Exactly.
Excuse
and
me.
then playing football in the NFL, there's a guy whose first name is Ben Jarvis. Not Ben, not Jarvis, but Ben Jarvis.
Like Ben-Hur.
Like Ben-Hur, right? Like Ben Jarvis, right? And then his last name, he's got one of them hyphenated last names, Green-Ellis. So his whole name is Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. And and the people on the team, his nickname is The Firm. Because he has so many names, he sounds like a law firm, right?
Fair enough.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, right? And then you got the misspelled names, like I don't know how many different spellings of Anton there is in the NBA. You know, T-A-W-N, T-O-I-N-E, T-W-A-N. And then you got Dwayne Wade, plays for the Miami Heat, but he spells his name D-W-Y-A-N-E, Dwyane, right? And then, of course, the old favorite, Isaiah Thomas, the old basketball player, who spells his Isaiah, he spells it Isia. He's missing an extra A that he's supposed to have in his name. But anyway, I bring that up because I got the top 10 baby names for 2008.
Is there any Plaxicos in there?
No Plaxicos.
No Plaxicos?
No Plaxicos.
Is it me? I know it's a terrible thing to say, but whenever you hear his name, don't you think of like some tooth decay?
Plaxico.
It sounds like something you rinse out your mouth with in the morning.
It's something the cavity creeps would do. They'd infect you with Plaxico. Okay, so let me give you the names here now. On the girls' side, pretty standard names here: Emma, Sophia, Madison, Isabella, Olivia, Ava, Madeline, Addison, Haley, and Lily are the top 10. I thought it was cute that Madison and Addison are both in there.
Hey.
But then that wasn't enough. I turned to the boys' names. The number 1 boy's name is Aiden.
Really?
The number 2 boy's name is Jaden. And the number 5 boy's name...
Raiden.
No, Caden. Seriously. So in the top 5, you've got Aiden, Jaden, and Caden. So couples, see, I don't have any kids, so breeders of the world, can we have some more Steves and Pauls and Johns and Toms and Bills
and Russes?
These Caden, Jaden, and Aiden. Oh my God!
I was working on a TV show a few months ago, and the family that we were working with had 2 little girls, Sarah and Connor. Sarah Connor.
Oh, that's too funny.
Give them air, Cohagen.
Yeah, we need air. All right, let's get to our listener email here.
I don't like spam.
I love it. I'm having sausage, egg, baked beans, spam, and spam. I'm sorry.
Though, speaking of spam, Stevie, the sales of spam have actually increased over the past couple of years due to the recession.
I'm not surprised.
More people are buying spam. It's lovely.
It is. It's lovely.
All right. Our first email comes from Edson in San Diego. Now, last week I was talking about gas prices and how the gas prices, amazingly over the past 7 weeks have dropped by $2. And I was asking why. Why do they drop so much? Is this manipulation from the oil companies? Is this manipulation by the OPEC, the Saudi government? What? Well, this is Edson's theory. He says it's because of the collapse of the credit market that has everyone hoarding money for the impending deflation. Before, a lot of the people who were buying oil and gasoline were doing so as speculators. They'd borrow money to buy the commodities, wait for the price to rise, then sell, pay back the loans, and make the money. The same speculators were doing the same thing with stocks, but suddenly, since there's no more credit market, they can't do it anymore. They're all out of the market, and the prices crash. So he says it's the speculators that did it, and now that there's no credit, the price goes down to about what it naturally should be. Thank you, Edson. I think that's the best explanation of this I have heard in a long time.
That really is.
Yeah. Now, another email we got from Dana, either Dana or Dana, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing it, but Dana says he's not going to listen to my show anymore. He's got to bid me adieu. And he says the reason why is because all we are saying is frickin' conservatives. That's all that goes on the left-wing radios. It's all frickin' conservatives. And he says that everybody on both sides is bought and paid for. And he predicts by the end of this presidential term, we will have 2 more major terrorist attacks, a major civilian border skirmish with Mexico, martial law, the North American Union, the Amero, extreme gun control, and the Fairness Doctrine is what's coming up in the next presidential term. So he says he's got to tune off of my show because he feels that it's bigger than just conservatives and liberals. It's really about the corporatocracy, I guess. And, you got a point there, Dana. And I think you're going to find in the next few months, as the Obama administration gets ramped up, you're going to find left-wing radio, progressive radio, sinking into these Democrats just as much as we sank into these Republicans. I wouldn't count us out of this as always blaming the conservatives. I myself have had a few bad things to say about Nancy Pelosi and Reid and all those Democrats. So tune in again. I think you'll be surprised.
Dana Damas.
That's right. Now, we've got another caller or another listener who emailed me to make a correction, and I'm glad he did. I was talking about, we were talking about Reverend Wright, and Kirk writes in, because I was talking about Reverend Wright and how black folks have had so many terrible things happen to him in this country that it's no surprise they would believe the things Reverend Wright says. And I made a mention about the Tuskegee Airmen. And that's not what I meant, and he caught it for me. The Tuskegee Airmen were the blacks who were the pilots in World War II in Southern Europe, and they were great and the most decorated air unit and all that. I was referring to the Tuskegee Incident, and I unfortunately said airmen. The Tuskegee Incident was when the black men were found to have syphilis, and they were left untreated. And then the idea was to observe them, see what happens to them over their lifetimes, and that was the Tuskegee experiment. So I misspoke. Kirk, thank you for the correction. And one last one, we got a call here, or an email from Barbara, who says, as a Californian born and raised, and now a 10-year resident in the Pacific Northwest, I refer to Lars Larson and Michael Savage as Lard Larson and the Savage Wiener. So
that's pretty good.
Thank you, Barbara. We like that. So that's it for today. You can send your emails in to radicalruss@gmail.com. I also like to give a shout out to everyone in the Portland, Oregon area. Next weekend, next Saturday, is the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards. Check out ornormal.org. That's ORNORML.org. I'll be speaking at the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards if you'd like to catch me there. Until next time, for Stevie Lee, I'm Radical Russ. This is the Russ Belville Show. We'll be back next weekend, this same time, same channel. Be there or be square, and take care of each other, America.
If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. Ain't always look